What if Giovanni had actually won, not just captured Pikachu or succeeded in one scheme, I mean completely won? What if Team Rocket had achieved everything they were trying to do across the entire Pokemon series? I spent the last week piecing together every Team Rocket plan, every mentioned goal, every hint about what Giovanni was really building toward. And what I found isn't just dark, it's a complete blueprint for turning the Pokemon world into something unrecognizable. A world where Pokemon aren't partners, they're weapons. Where trainers aren't free explorers, they're soldiers. Where everything we love about Pokemon just stops existing. But here's what really messed me up. There's evidence in the anime suggesting that Giovanni almost succeeded. There was a moment where Team Rocket was one decision away from total victory, and most fans never even noticed it happened. Let me show you exactly what the Pokemon world would look like under Team Rocket control, and then you tell me if Ash and his friends really understood what they were fighting against. First, let's talk about what Team Rocket actually wants, because it's way more complicated than just steal rare Pokemon. That's what Jesse and James do, sure, but they're low-level grunts who barely understand the bigger picture. Giovanni's real plan, the one that gets mentioned in scattered episodes and easy-to-miss dialogue, is about completely controlling the Pokemon economy. Not just owning rare Pokemon, controlling who has access to them, who's allowed to train them, who can breed them, who can sell them. Think about how the Pokemon world works normally. Anyone can catch Pokemon, anyone can train them, anyone can travel freely and challenge gyms. The system is open, democratic, accessible to 10-year-olds with a dream and a starter Pokemon. That's the whole point of the world. It's designed to give everyone equal opportunity. Now imagine Giovanni controls that entire system. Imagine he decides who gets Pokemon and who doesn't. Imagine he sets the prices, controls the breeding programs, monopolizes the rare species. Suddenly, Pokemon training isn't about freedom and adventure, it's about wealth and access. And here's the really insidious part. This wouldn't happen overnight through some dramatic takeover. It would happen gradually, through legitimate business moves that seem reasonable, until you realize what they add up to. There's an episode in the original series where Team Rocket tries to take over the Pokemon breeding industry. They're not stealing Pokemon in this one. They're offering to buy out breeders and centralize the breeding operations under one company. It sounds like normal business, right? Consolidation, efficiency, economies of scale. But once they control breeding, they control which Pokemon get produced. They can make certain species artificially rare. They can ensure that powerful Pokemon only go to trainers who support Team Rocket's interests. They can breed Pokemon specifically for combat effectiveness rather than as companions. This is how authoritarianism actually works in the real world. Not through obvious evil, but through controlling systems that seem neutral until you realize who's in charge. But the breeding industry is just one piece. Let me tell you about the moment where Team Rocket almost won. The time they nearly took control of Silph Co., the company that manufactures Pokemon technology. In the games, this is a whole storyline. Team Rocket invades Silph Co. to steal the Master Ball technology. But in the anime, there's a brief reference to Team Rocket having investors in Silph Co., having board members who are secretly Rocket operatives, having influence over the company's direction. Do you understand what that means? If Team Rocket controls Silph Co., they control Pokeballs. They control potions. They control every piece of technology that trainers depend on. They could make these items expensive enough that only wealthy trainers can afford them. They could program Pokeballs to have backdoors that let Team Rocket take control of any Pokemon caught with their technology. They wouldn't need to steal Pokemon anymore. They'd own every Pokemon caught with their products. Every trainer using their Pokeballs would essentially be working for Team Rocket without knowing it, and this almost happened. In one episode, Giovanni is shown in a board meeting with Silph Co. executives discussing a merger. We never see the outcome of that meeting because Ash interferes with a different Team Rocket plot and the storyline gets dropped. But for a moment there, Giovanni was one handshake away from controlling the entire technological infrastructure of the Pokemon world. Now let's talk about what happens after Team Rocket wins this economic war. Because controlling resources is just step one, using that control to reshape society is step two. Imagine you're a kid in Pallet Town in a world where Team Rocket has won. You turn 10 years old, you're excited to start your Pokemon journey. You go to Professor Oak to get your starter, except Professor Oak doesn't have starters to give you anymore. Because Team Rocket controls breeding and they've decided that starter Pokemon are only available to trainers who register with their organization. So you register, you don't have a choice if you want to be a trainer. And when you register, you agree to certain terms. You'll use your Pokemon for purposes approved by Team Rocket. You'll report regularly on your activities. You'll accept assignments from Team Rocket operatives when required. You're not a free trainer exploring the world. You're a Team Rocket contractor, and your Pokemon are Team Rocket assets that you're allowed to use as long as you follow the rules. Don't want to register? Fine, but good luck finding Pokemon. Team Rocket controls the breeding. They've placed restrictions on wild captures in most areas, and any Pokemon you manage to catch illegally will be confiscated the moment you try to use a Pokemon Center or enter a city. This is the world Giovanni is building, not through violence, but through economic control, so complete that resistance becomes practically impossible. But it gets darker, because once Team Rocket controls who can be a trainer, they can start controlling what trainers do with their Pokemon. And this is where the turning Pokemon into weapons part comes in. There are multiple episodes where we see Team Rocket experimenting with forced evolution, genetic modification, and combat conditioning that goes way beyond normal training. They're not trying to make Pokemon stronger as partners. They're trying to make them into living weapons that will obey without question and fight without mercy. In a world where Team Rocket has won, this becomes standard. New trainers aren't taught to bond with their Pokemon. They're taught to maximize combat effectiveness. Pokemon that don't perform well enough get recycled into the breeding program. Trainers who don't produce results get their licenses revoked. The whole culture of Pokemon training shifts from this wholesome journey of friendship and growth to a cold militaristic system focused entirely on power and control. And the gyms? Forget about it. In Team Rocket's world, gyms don't exist as independent challenges that trainers overcome through skill and determination. They become recruitment centers and testing grounds where Team Rocket identifies the strongest trainers and forces them to work for the organization. Imagine Brock, instead of being a friendly gym leader who encourages new trainers, being a Team Rocket enforcer whose job is to crush weak trainers and recruit strong ones. Imagine Misty testing trainers not to help them grow, but to identify threats to Team Rocket's control. The whole purpose of gyms gets inverted, mean instead of helping trainers prove themselves, they become tools for suppressing anyone who might challenge the system. There's this one episode that haunts me because it shows exactly what this would look like. Team Rocket temporarily takes over a small town, and within days they've restructured everything. Pokemon centers start charging fees, shops only sell to registered trainers. Anyone caught with unauthorized Pokemon gets imprisoned. It's played as a temporary inconvenience in the episode. Ash fixes it, everyone celebrates, life returns to normal. But the episode accidentally showed us the blueprint. It showed us how quickly Team Rocket could transform a free society into an authoritarian system once they have the power to do it. And the scariest part, most people in that town were complying. They were paying the fees, registering their Pokemon, following the rules, because what else could they do? Resistance seemed impossible when Team Rocket controlled all the resources and infrastructure. Now here's where this gets really interesting from a symbolic perspective, because I don't think the Pokemon anime's writers fully realized what they were creating when they designed Team Rocket. On the surface, Team Rocket represents generic bad guys who want to steal Pokemon. But when you look at what they actually do, what they actually represent, it's much more specific. They're the embodiment of unchecked capitalism and authoritarian control. Think about it. Giovanni is a businessman first, a villain second. His plans aren't about world domination through military force. They're about market domination through economic control. He doesn't want to rule through fear. He wants to rule through dependency by making people need him to participate in society. This is the same pattern we see in real-world corporate monopolies. Control the resources, control the market, make alternatives impossible, and suddenly you don't need violence to maintain power. People comply because they have no other choice. In the Pokemon world, in its ideal form, represents the opposite of this. It's a world where a kid with nothing can catch a Pokemon in the wild, train it through dedication and love, and compete on equal terms with anyone. It's radically egalitarian in a way that directly threatens any attempt at hierarchical control. Team Rocket isn't just trying to steal Pokemon, they're trying to destroy the fundamental freedom that makes the Pokemon world special. They're trying to turn an open, accessible system into a closed, controlled one where power flows from the top down instead of being distributed among everyone. When Ash fights Team Rocket, he's not just protecting individual Pokemon, he's protecting the entire concept of freedom that the Pokemon world represents. Every time he stops their plans, he's preserving a world where anyone can be a trainer, where Pokemon are partners, not property, where exploration and adventure are available to everyone. That's why Team Rocket can never be just bumbling comic relief, even when that's how they're portrayed. What they represent is too important, too threatening to the core values of the Pokemon world. There's this recurring theme in the series where Team Rocket's plans start small and local but always hint at something bigger. They'll try to steal Pokemon from one town, but the dialogue reveals this is part of a regional operation. They'll take over one business, but it's clearly part of a larger economic strategy. The anime keeps showing us pieces of Giovanni's master plan, but it never shows us the complete picture. Probably because if it really explored what Team Rocket victory would mean, it would be too dark for a kid's show. But we can piece it together. Economic control leading to social control. Monopoly on resources leading to authoritarian governance. The gradual transformation of a free society into one where every aspect of life is controlled by a single organization. It's corporate dystopia disguised as a cartoon villain scheme. And the more you think about it, the more disturbing it becomes. Here's what really gets me though. Giovanni almost had valid points buried in his invalid methods. The Pokemon world does have problems. There's no regulation on who can capture Pokemon or how many. There's no oversight on how trainers treat their Pokemon. Young kids are allowed to wander dangerous routes with minimal supervision. A reasonable person could look at these issues and think we need some structure here, some organization, some centralized authority to ensure safety and fairness. And then that person could start with good intentions and still end up building Team Rocket's system, because the road from we need some oversight to we control everything is shorter than people think. This is the real danger Team Rocket represents, not that they're obviously evil, but that their path to control starts with legitimate sounding concerns and gradually transforms into tyranny. By the time people realize what's happening, they're already dependent on the system and resistance seems impossible. The Pokemon anime accidentally created one of the smartest villainous organizations in children's media. They gave us an antagonist that represents real-world threats, corporate consolidation, authoritarian creep, the erosion of freedom through economic control, and then they made them goofy enough that kids wouldn't be scared, but left enough depth that adults could recognize the serious themes underneath. So what happens in the world where Team Rocket wins? Everything that makes Pokemon special disappears. The freedom, the adventure, the equal opportunity, the bonds between humans and Pokemon, all of it gets replaced with a controlled system designed to concentrate power and eliminate alternatives. Cities operate under Team Rocket governance, with every aspect of life regulated to serve Giovanni's interests. Gyms become tools of oppression instead of challenges to overcome. Trainers become employees instead of free explorers. And Pokemon themselves become commodities, weapons, and tools rather than partners and friends. It's the death of everything the Pokemon world represents, achieved not through dramatic conquest but through systematic economic control. Thankfully, Team Rocket never won. Ash and countless other trainers kept fighting back, kept protecting the freedom and openness that makes their world worth living in. Every time Giovanni got close to achieving his goals, someone stood up to stop him. But imagining that world, really thinking through what Team Rocket victory would mean, reminds us what Pokemon is actually about at its core. It's not just about catching creatures and winning battles, it's about freedom, friendship, and fighting back against systems that try to control and exploit. Every time Ash defeats Team Rocket, he's not just winning a battle, he's defending a way of life. He's protecting a world where anyone can be a trainer, where Pokemon can choose their partners, where exploration and growth are available to everyone regardless of wealth or status. That's the real stakes of the Pokemon series, hidden underneath all the colorful battles and friendship speeches. It's about preserving freedom against forces that want to eliminate it. Do you think the Pokemon world could have survived if Team Rocket had won? Would resistance even be possible once they controlled everything? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I'm genuinely curious whether you think the heroes could have recovered from that level of defeat. Well, stick around for the best Pokemon channel that exists, I guess. I mean, probably anyways.